If you enjoyed the channel and our video content and would like to support us, you can do this in a couple of ways. You can sign up to our Patreon site, which is a monthly subscription to one of our 4 tiers, each giving you something different from early access interviews up to exclusive unseen footage. There's also the option of a one-off donation via PayPal, which allows you the option to donate an amount of your choice. Both options really help to keep this channel going and to continue putting out regular content for you good folk. So please take a look at aircrewinterview.tv/donate, and I thank you in advance. Thank you and enjoy.
Yeah, Gonky, did you ever fly against the MiG-29s?
Yeah, I did fly against the MiG-29. They were kind of, I mean, they don't fly it anymore. So I kind of caught the MiG-29 at the tail end of the RMAF's use of it. And my big takeaway with MiG-29, so I actually did some mixed employment with them to where we were kind of like on the same side of an air-to-air engagement and BVR, I'm talking.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in the Navy, the air-to-air doctrine in the U.S. is basically give the air crew as much information, pertinent information, and then let them decide, right?
Right.
So the Soviet Union kind of doctrine, the Russian doctrine is we're going to tell you where to go and who to shoot, right? You're just a pawn.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was in the States flying, how just, for lack of a better word, just how anal the Top Gun guys were about comm discipline and like not using trucker comm. You know, words mean things, like being very precise with communication. So one of my first experiences with MiG-29 is I'm doing this mixed thing, and I'm leading it in a Hornet. And as soon as I say fights on, the controller just starts talking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, single 1-1 target, single 1-2, a turn cold, turn hot. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, like, we all died, it's like, it was, and it's so funny. Like, coming home from that flight, I was like, okay, this is what they were talking about. Like, as far as the different doctrines, like I just got to experience it. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad, I was trained the Western style, because all the talking that was going on, because you're constantly listening for your call sign. What do I do? And you're trying to build a picture in your head of what's going on. And it was very, in my opinion, maybe because I'm Western trained, but it was very SA degrading. But that's how the MiG-29s kind of operated BVR, air to air. So I could see, I was like, man, we definitely have a big advantage in that regard. And I did numerous air to air hops. A lot of times as 1v1, because they were trying to get some training done, just like we were. I'd take a new student up. And it wasn't uncommon for us to be able to stern convert them, meaning that we were able to, break their radar lock and have an unobserved entry and just basically drive around the back and end up, a mile behind them. And that's not a dig on having experienced, kind of the control that he was getting in his aircraft. It's not a dig on the MiG-29. Like I said, it was a little bit older, so their IRST system that they had wasn't as good as it used to be. Like, the ranges weren't what they used to be, and I know they were struggling with parts for the radar limitations like that as well. So BVR, the Hornet definitely had a major advantage over the Malaysian MiG-29. In BFM, I only got to BFM the MiG-29, I think twice, maybe 3 times, but it was always from one of those BVR engagements. So I never got to go out and just set up in a beam set and fight. And I think a lot of that's because the Hornet base was all the way on the west side of the country, Penang, and the MiG-29 base was all the way on the east side. Both jets are a little bit fuel limited, especially the MiG-29. And I think just logistically, us flying all the way across the country to meet one another to fight, we might get one engagement, because the BVR stuff, a lot of times that's all we did was like one engagement, maybe two, then the MiG's out of gas. And then, we're, I forget, I don't know, several hundred miles from home. It's like, we got to go too. But the engagements that I did have were, I was, turning with the MiG, and I have one that I put on YouTube, made a video out of it. The MiG-29 is definitely a G machine. It reminds me a lot of the F-16. You don't take in the Hornet, and a lot of times, actually every time that I went over there to fight MiG-29s, I always had two bags. So we were at a disadvantage because we needed the extra gas. But man, right away, I mean, you hit, a lot of times, so we would, stern convert them, and then I would let them do a wide turn, and then they would come back at us, and we would have a merge. And a lot of times the merges were wider just from the geometry, but just for my own eyeball cal, the first time I took a MiG-29, I just turned across his tail blower in the Hornet, and I just held my numbers for the best rate numbers, and I looked out above the canopy, and I mean, very quickly he was outrating me, which was eye-opening, because in the States we would try to simulate the MiG-29, but it's hard to simulate because you're using like airplanes, and guys would try to use, okay, if you're the MiG-29, you can use burner. If you're the Hornet, you can use mill, but it still wasn't the same. So yeah, my first time seeing the MiG fight in the visual arena, I was really impressed with its G ability. You don't want to be in a G fight with a MiG-29. So, what I would do all the time is I would basically cut across the circle, and I would force a one circle fight on them, which is where the Hornet is better, and that's where I would usually get them. But yeah, the MiG-29, I have a lot of respect for that airplane. We did a big exercise while I was there called, was it Cope Tufan, where the Air Force came out. They brought the Raptor, so we had the Raptor, the Eagle, the MiG-29, Sukhoi. It's crazy. It was like a fighter pilot's dream. Was it? No, they held it right there in Penang.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Cope Tufan. But when everybody first got there, as you can imagine, it's the unrestricted takeoff, right? Because everyone wants to show off. And I'd stand out there and watch them all. And the MiG-29 and the Raptor had the best, but the MiG-29 was pretty good. So it's got a lot of thrust. If you try to play, thrust to weight, the MiG's better. So you can't play that game. You gotta stick to what the Hornet's strong at, and you'll do fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of one of the chats you had with Mover, I think you said the Typhoon guys and gals came out to Malaysia as well. Did you ever get to play with the Typhoons, or?
No, I didn't. I wish I would have. They were out there quite a while because they were trying to sell the Typhoon as well to the RMAF. They also have a very impressive unrestricted takeoff. But no, I didn't get a chance to fight with them. I can't remember the squadron number that was out there, but those guys were awesome. I went over, they gave me the full tour, and I gave them a tour of the Hornet, and it's fun, man. It's always fun. You meet fighter pilots from other cultures. It's kind of like you're all cut from the same cloth. So it was very entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the social side like? And did you meet outside of work, as it were, or was it like work's done, I'm off my own with my wife and my own friends?
Most of the time, when work was over, I would I would go, but they were always holding little squadron functions and stuff. A lot of times it was family oriented. Like we went to a water park once, and I don't know, like I got invited to weddings, and so it was because it's a tight community, and they included me, in their community. Really with everything. And we would do detachments or TDYs over in Kwanton, which is where the MiG base is. And those guys would invite me out, all the time. I mean, we go out to dinner together and hang out. And, Mike, I would use them to scope out the safe places to eat in town. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hey, I was like, take me. I need some authentic. Pick your type of food. Okay, well, here we go. And I go to some, it's like a bicycle stand with a hot plate there. I'm like, this is okay. And they're like, oh, it's the best.
Yeah, 1 ringgit.
Yes, 1 ringgit, exactly. So, no, they, we didn't hang out a lot. I got involved. I ride motorcycles a lot. So I brought I like riding and racing dirt bikes. I got into that scene there, and a couple of the guys kind of rode a little bit, and I got to really learn the culture there as well, because work is work, but when you get out and actually hang out with the families and do recreational type stuff, that's when you get the true skinny on everything. Really. Yeah. So I mean, it was that part of it was really cool.
You said work there. Did it actually feel like work when you were going in? You're going to go and fly a Hornet. Can't be work, really.
Well, it's funny. I tell people all the time, and it's true. The most dangerous part of my day was getting to work and going home, because it was so I lived in Penang, and the base was in Butterworth. So Penang is an island, and then mainland Malaysia, right? And people would travel via either the ferry, or there's now 2 Penang bridges, but the Penang Bridge, and traffic there can get pretty crazy, as you know. And the only way that I was ever going to make it to work on time, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever, is if I had a scooter. So I bought a scooter, and as much as I could, I became a Malaysian scooter rider. And I got hit twice by a car. Luckily, I'm okay. But that was my most dangerous part of getting to work. But once I actually got there, no, man, it didn't feel like work. They didn't. I mean, as long as I was doing what I could to help them, they were happy. And I would show up. I go into there were days where I didn't see anybody, because they were out doing, there were briefs and stuff that they would get that I'm not privy to, because, that's their business. It's Malaysian secrets or whatever. I don't, I was just the civilian. So they would leave, all day, and I would be there, and I would spend my day just working on, trying to get the help, walk over the maintenance guys, parts. They had another American over there who was in the supply part of the whole logistical program they had. And he was Bart, and Bart and I got along really well. And so I'd go over and talk to Bart. I'd be like, dude, what are you struggling with? He would tell me. He didn't work for Boeing, but he would tell me, and then I would send some emails. I was always trying to help him, because, you could, it reminded me a lot of the Navy, in the sense that, the guys on the ground, the pilots, the maintainers, the Wizzos, they were doing as good as they could with what they have. And I always thought, I was like, man, if I could just get them a little bit more, it would just pay huge dividends, and sometimes I always thought, just like in the Navy, that higher up really didn't care as much as they should. Mm-hmm. So, when I saw that, being somebody who could essentially, jump the chain if I needed to, I would send emails direct to people and stuff, just to try to get things going, to help them out as much as I could. But it was a very relaxed atmosphere. They, and this sounds crazy, but they wouldn't let me do any of my own flight planning, Really? Yeah, I would show up. And I finally had to tell them, I was like, listen, guys, if I don't do some of this, I'm not going to have any idea what I'm doing. Because,
exactly.
I got to plan part of it. So I have a framework in my mind of what we're going to do. And, they were always very much, like, oh no, this is, they gave me this attitude like, oh, this is beneath you. I'm like, no, actually it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, it was not like going to work, man. It was literally just like I was riding over to hang out with my, they were my friends, man. It was a very welcoming environment most of the time I was there.
Absolutely. So overall, did you enjoy flying the Hornet in Malaysia? And have you got any maybe memorable stories or something that stands out from your time over there?
Yeah. I tell you what, you asked me about dissimilar, and I made a video about it, but I'll talk about it here on your show. But actually, the most memorable fight that I had over there, probably in my entire Hornet career, was against an RMAF Hawk.
Oh, really?
Yes, exactly. A couple things I learned, just so I happened to be flying with Termite again on this fight, but they're like, hey man, we're going to do some dissimilar with the Hawk. And I was like, cool. And we had 2 tanks on the jet at the time. And so I'm leading it. So they send the Hawk pilot over and we brief, and I tell him, I'm like, hey man, listen, I got 2 tanks, but I'll probably just use mill. Like, we'll make it interesting, because I flew the Hawk, well, a version of the Hawk in the Navy. And that thing is not very good at BFM. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I'm like, this is a piece of cake. So I'm basically telling this Hawk pilot, I can't remember his call sign, but I'm like, man, I won't use burner. I might do this, show you a little leg here. We get done with the brief. Like, we walk out, Termite's like, yo, Gonky, you got to use burner, dude. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, we have to win. I'm like, we're gonna win. He's like, no. He's like, you have to use burner. We got to go for the kill. Right? I'm like, Termite, you're kind of freaking me out here. Like, what's going on, dude? Like, am I missing something? And so I was like, all right. So we went out there, Mike, and I'll never forget, man. We had a saying in the T-45, go up, blow up, And so I hit the merge with this Hawk, and I go straight up, and I get through about 90 degrees, and that's when I crank my head around. I'm looking down beneath me. I'm like, where's he at? I'm just going to roll over the top here, and we're just going to, pepper bullets all over him. It's going to be over. And I don't see him. And I had a momentary panic attack. And then I looked directly across from me, and dude, there he is going straight up with me.
No way.
Like we're matched, Wow. And I'm like, and there was probably every fighter pilot is going through this. When they have a game plan, they're supremely confident what's about to happen is going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. And you have this like 2-second panic episode where you don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm literally like, how is he matching me? And like, I kind of froze up for a second, and then I was like, all right, at least put the blower in. So I put the blower in. Now, like, Termite's words were coming in. Put the blower in. So I put the blower in, and Mike, we ended up, we come up top here, and he made a mistake. He went nose low almost right away, and which is a mistake. And I was able to capitalize on that and gun him. But we got back in the debrief. I don't remember we did like 2 more engagements. I don't remember those at all. But we went back, and I guess he was the Hawk demo pilot, because that thing doesn't have any fancy FCS, right? It's all stick and rudder, and if you depart, you depart. And I told him, I was like, dude, I'm like, how did you do that? Because to match me like that, he had to match my pull. And like I said, having flown the T-45, I'm like, there's no way. And that's when he told me, well, man, I do a lot of the demo, and I'm one of the high time Hawk guys and this and that. And I was like, dude, I was like this close, man, this close to me, just like flying out in front of you, not knowing what to do kind of thing. But that was by far my most memorable BFM engagement out there with them. Probably my most memorable, one of my favorite flights I ever did was, we went out as at night, and this has nothing tactical. There's nothing tactical about this. I actually have 2. There's 2 stories that need to be told here. The first one is I went out and we did something way out west of Penang in the middle of the night. And on the way back, I asked my Wizzo, I was like, "Hey, can we just like do a sightseeing flight?" And they called Penang Island the Rock. And so he requested, he's like, "Hey, whatever, Penang approach, can we go around the rock?" And they're like, "Sure." And they said, it's so funny, I'll never forget it. Like, they're like, "What altitude do you want?" I was like, "I don't know, tell them 2,000 feet." He's like, "All right, 2,000 feet. So sure, we go down to 2,000 feet. It's night. Hornet's got a route out. And the west side of Penang, as you know, is pretty agricultural. There's not a ton of lights out there, but the east side is a straight up, thriving city, all kinds of lights. So we're cruising around the west side of the rock, and the approach comes up. They're like, "Hey, we need you lower." And we're like, "Well, how low?" They're like, "Could you do 500 feet or lower?" And I'm like, "I love this country," like, tell them yes, So we go down to 500 feet, man. And we come around the east side, and there's, there's all the buildings and stuff. And dude, I came past where I live there. I lived on top of a mall. There's a really nice harbor where they call it Straits Key. Gurney Plaza is not far. It's like where all the high-end shopping is, man. And here I am. I come around in this Hornet at like a couple hundred feet, and I get past where I live, Straits Key, and I just stroke the blower. Yeah, I stroked the blower. I got pretty close, and we come back and land. We get back, and this is just this happened to me more than once, but we get back and we land. I'm like, man, my phone blows up. My wife's like, "What's going on? We heard the windows were shaking, blah blah blah." And I'm like, maybe it was too cool, And we get back, and I'm like, I forget the Wizzo I was flying with, great dude, but I'm like, "Dude, that was awesome." I'm like why don't we do that more often? And he goes, "Oh, we never fly around the east side of the rock." I'm like, "Well, why not?" He's like, "Well, I'm not sure we're allowed to." I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, what? But his exact words were, "Oh, but you're a Boeing. It's okay." I'm like, "No, dude,
Right.
it's not okay, man." Yeah, so I got back, and my good buddy of mine is a South African. He flew 747s. He was outside. He recorded it. He's like, "Dude," he's like, that was awesome." So I got to fly by or buzz my house, which was kind of cool.
Awesome.
And then when I very first got my GoPro, I had it out there, and my wife actually got it for me for Christmas. Thank God she did, or I wouldn't have any of the cool footage I have. But I was flying with one of the more senior Malaysian guys. I won't say his call sign in case he gets in trouble for this story, but I showed him, and I was like, "Dude," I was like, "I got this GoPro." I was like, "Let's," and I was the wingman, so he was going to lead. I was like, "Let's go out and get some cool shots and stuff." He's like, "Oh yeah," they smoke a lot. He's like, "Oh yeah, Gonky." He's like, "You just follow me. You just follow me." I was like, "Okay." And we get out there, Mike, and the one thing I admired about the Malaysian Air Force was they are very proud. So in the States, you kind of get, in the Navy, not so much the Air Force, but any kind of flat hatting, they don't like it. Whereas in the RMAF, the ground crew guys love that stuff. Like Pachit, right? It was a high performance takeoff. So you'd tell them that, and they'd all come out, they'd line up. Dude, they'd come out and watch their airplane, do a high performance takeoff. For them, it was a pride thing. It's like, that's our jet. So, so this guy that was leading me around, he was not afraid to, to do fun stuff. Anyways, we get out there, and for whatever reason, I kick myself to this day. But I was flying with Kunte, one of the Wizzos, infamous, and he talked me into letting him be the camera operator. This is why I don't have video proof of what the story I'm about to tell you. But he put it on like rapid fire picture mode instead of camera mode. But anyways, Mike, we take off, and my lead takes off, and he just hugs the ground. The gear comes up, right? I'm behind him, and I'm accelerating, and he gets to the end of the runway, and he just squats it. which is not that big of a deal, but he squats it, and a nanosecond later, he does about 3 aileron rolls.
Whoa.
And like, I'm midfield now, gears up, and I see him do this, and I think that is awesome. And then the thought goes through my mind is like, I have to be a good wingman and follow my lead. Mike, I hit the end of the runway, man. I squatted that jet. I slammed the stick over, and I did the exact same thing. That's the first and only time. If I did that in the Navy, they'd take my wings. If I did that in the Air Force, 100%. If I did that in the Air Force, they would take my wings. But it was, in that scene in Top Gun, right, when he launches off the carrier and they're filming backwards, he does it since 1986. I have been dreaming about taking off and doing just a sick aileron roll.
So you got your Top Gun moment,
dude. We did like 3.
Whoa. I'm guessing you were clean though. You can't have been tanked up for that.
No, we had centerline tank.
Right.
Centerline. We had a centerline tank. But you know what? You bring up a good point, because when you squat the jet, obviously you lose some airspeed. And I remember when the jet was rolling, it wasn't the normal crisp roll I was used to. She was wallering a little bit. But yeah, then we went out and, we did, I can't even remember the mission. The entire time I was just thinking about how rad that footage was going to be, and how that would be like the only type of that footage in the world. And then we got back, I was like, Kunte.
There's a couple of pictures.
The crazy thing is, honestly, Mike, I thought to myself, I'll just get it on the next one. But I guess I never had the opportunity. And I was never bold enough, to do anything like that on my own, because I was there to train them. I wasn't there to break their airplanes or, do something dumb. But they, as a pilot group, just had a lot of fun being fighter pilots. And that's the other thing is I always told my friends back in the States, I'm like, I think this is what it was like back in the 50s flying fast jets, because the military controlled a lot of the airspace. You could basically do almost whatever you wanted, really, within reason, as long as no one got hurt. So it was, and like I said, they had so much pride in what they were doing. A little bit of flat hatting wasn't considered showing off. It was, hey, we're the mighty Hornets, right? So, and I miss that. That kind of fighter culture is not as strong in the States as what I experienced over there. Those guys were, like I said, him coming out, hey, we cannot lose. This is squadron pride on the line here, right? So, and there was a lot of that. They would, everything was pretty competitive with those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Even that takeoff you mentioned there, that's the kind of thing when you're a young boy, you think of being a fighter pilot, doing that cool stuff, and you obviously got to do it.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I'm sure some Hornet guy will listen to this and be like, "Oh, that was one of the smartest, safest thing to do." Yeah, I know. Like, I get it. I
had to do it.
All of that went through my mind, but I would argue, strapping into a Hornet and flying off of Navy ships isn't exactly the smartest thing you can do with yourself either.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Inherent danger in everything, but I'll never forget it. I just wish I had the video. I just have still shots of us, doing what looks like a roll, but yeah, man, those are probably my most memorable moments flying out there. And it's just, it's sad it ended. I really miss it, and it would be, I know you can never go back, kind of thing, but in heaven, I'm probably flying Hornets and fighting Malaysian flankers and MiG-29s on my off time.
Awesome stuff. So how long did you actually spend over there, Gonky?
A little over 2 years, right around 2 years. Yeah, it was short. It actually got cut short. The Malaysians, they bought a really nice mod for the airplane, so they wanted to update the airplane with 9X mids, a couple
Yeah.
other things, and through that whole evolution of how that was supposed to happen, how they contracted it out, Boeing ended up stopping the instructor part of the contract over there, which was sad, on both sides. So I got to come home. I wanted to stay out there as long as I could, but I'll take the 2 years that I got, and I'm still friends with a lot of the guys that are still flying over there, and I hope to see them one day. I do plan to go visit. It's as you know, it's quite a popular expat destination or a place. They're very open to that. So I hope to be able to go back and take a look, and maybe they'll still be flying the Hornet, man. I hope so.
So we got a couple of personal questions to wrap up the interview. Gonky, do you have any hobbies?
Yeah, my biggest hobby outside of flying, which I guess not really a hobby, but I like motorcycles a lot, man. I ride primarily dirt bikes. I like riding, racing, motocross quite a bit. It's kind of it's a lot like being a fighter pilot. It's a man and machine, So since I was a kid, I've always been into motorcycles, and it just it never left me. I guess they say once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. But the Malaysians, they're also into motorcycles as well, as you know. Everyone's got one.
Yeah, they do indeed. Favorite aircraft you have flown?
My favorite aircraft that I've flown is probably the Hornet. It's a great jet. I mean, I've flown on being a CFI. I've flown a lot of unique stuff, but probably the favorite airplane that I've actually flown has been the Hornet.
The Malaysian D model?
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing, but yeah, if I had to plunk down my own money for a jet, I'd probably take a Malaysian D. I'm a single seat guy, make no mistake, but it would be nice to carry some friends in the back.
Absolutely, yeah. One you would like to fly either past or present?
Yeah, I always wanted to fly the Tomcat. I think Tomcat and F4 as on the jets are the two jets that I wish I could have flown. The Phantom, mainly because my dad worked on Phantoms in Vietnam. And he always would tell me stories about it. He'd run up the engines and stuff, and J79, this, that, and the other. So the F4, I had a good buddy of mine. Unfortunately, he just passed away. He was an F4 Rio, and it was just the true muscle car era, if you will, of fighter jets. And then of course the Tomcat, because that's the one that kind of sunk the hook as far as dude, this is something you want to do. But as far as piston powered stuff, I'm a big Spitfire fan, and I like the Corsair as well. Those two.
Yeah, the Corsair is lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Spitfire though can't argue with the lines, man. The elliptical wing.
Yeah, it's a beauty, isn't it? Absolute beauty. Yeah. So yeah, Gonky, where can we find you online? Do you have an Instagram? And obviously everyone know you from the Mover and Gonky show, but can we find you anywhere?
I'm kind of I'm technology challenged, Mike.
Right.
Yeah, Mover and Gonky show is where you'll catch Mover and I every week. It's not always Monday, but we try to make it on Monday. That's where you'll catch us most. And I can't remember the email, but the email address is up there under my name. You guys can send me. You guys can reach out to me there. I do my best. I get a decent amount of emails. I do my best to get back to everybody. When I can, but I still got 2 young kids and a wife and stuff, so I'm juggling a lot of stuff. But I do really appreciate it when people reach out. But probably the YouTube channel is the best way to get a hold of me. I do have an Instagram account. I have not figured out how to use it yet. So I'm easing into the technology, Mike.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
One last question for me. Yeah, do you enjoy the? I guess maybe is tension the right word? But like obviously the success from the Mover and Gonky show. Do you enjoy that interaction with the fans?
Well, thank you for claiming it's a success.
It really is.
I know. I joke. I have to tell him we're really gonna kick out of that. Yeah, I really enjoy it. It all stemmed from, primarily my business is real estate. I do real estate, and then Mover obviously has a much more online presence, author, whatnot, and when we kind of came together with this idea, it was not necessarily totally, something for us, but it was another means to where we could help people answer questions, because he started Make Them Tell You No, the Facebook page. So for any young person out there who's looking for information, the latest on, hey, I have this ailment, can I get a waiver? If you go on the Make Them Tell You No Facebook page, there's I'm on there, Skid's, you got Skid on there. There's real fighter pilots on there. Like there's current people on there who can help answer these questions. Like if it existed when I was younger, I would have asked about asthma.
Yeah.
It's a wealth of information. So and we had done some one-off live shows before, and there was always just a lot of questions, and we thought, there's a lot of podcasts out there that do fighter talk, but there's nothing really out there where the fans can interact. I say fans, but just curious people can interact. And so we went with kind of the live model with, open question, and we get like tons and tons, like it's a constant stream of questions. So that's why we do the super chat thing, is because if we didn't do that, it would be the whole show would just be continuously answering questions.
Yeah.
Which and we spur conversation with topics that we think will be interesting, because, and you probably get this too, but like some of the emails I get are just people just curious about like my, hey, the Russians, they buzzed an F-16. What do you think about that? It's like, well, instead of answering this 6 times, let's just talk about it on a show, and then it spurs conversation. And I think it's good too, because, back in the 80s, man, like when I decided, I was like, man, I want to be a fighter pilot. That was it, period. It's not like I could go log on to a computer and just dive down. I couldn't go on YouTube and watch, real fighter pilots talk about stuff. Right. So, I just think it's really cool that, I give credit to Mover. It's his brainchild, but, I think it's cool that we have a platform where we can actually interact with people out there, and, kids too. Right. I mean, we try to make it as PG as possible, but, kids, and that makes it fun. 'Cause, it kind of takes me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Gonky, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been brilliant to hear a bit about your story, and wishing you luck with the future podcasts.
Thanks, Mike. And like I said, man, I really appreciate what you do. The stories that you're able to capture from like nobodies like myself, I think serve future generations really well, because I enjoy your work. I listen when I'm driving to drill. I usually listen to Air Crew Interview, and I get to learn about other air forces and communities, man. So please keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome.
Oh, thanks very much, and same to you. But cheers, Gonky.
See you, man.